Mr. Speaker, we have the best deal in the world with the Americans.
They said he bowed to Trump. They said he sold out Canadian workers. They said he handed over $1 trillion gift to the United States. But what if everything you've been told is exactly what they wanted you to believe? Behind the shouting in Parliament and the viral headlines, a different story was unfolding. A story of strategy, foresight, and calculated power. This wasn't weakness. This was chess at the highest level, and the stakes were nothing less than Canada's economy, its sovereignty, and its place on the world stage. Can one man guide an entire nation through media frenzy, political outrage, and international pressure? The answer will surprise you.
The President of the United States and myself had a meeting of minds yesterday with respect to the future of the steel sector, the aluminum sector, the energy sector.
Inside those halls, discussions stretched across steel, aluminum, energy, and auto sectors, the backbone of Canadian industry. Every word spoken carried weight, every pause measured. Canada entered that room not as a follower, but as a partner, an equal, a force that could not be ignored. Yet while the opposition erupted with cries of betrayal, the real moves remained invisible to the cameras. Behind the noise, strategy quietly unfolded, and what seemed like surrender was, in truth, a shield protecting Canadian workers. While headlines screamed catastrophe, the moves behind the scenes were laying the foundation for something far bigger than anyone imagined. How can a single meeting shift the future of a nation? The next moments will reveal the truth.
What this government is doing for the auto sector is an unprecedented investment in the Canadian auto sector. We look the Canadian auto workers in the eye. We have $5 billion in the Strategic Response Fund. We have $10 billion for liquidity management. We have worker retraining. We are striking deals with
funds for strategic response, liquidity support, and worker retraining weren't just numbers. They were instruments of protection, carefully deployed to counter both economic and political pressure. Critics screamed betrayal, yet Carney's calm, deliberate actions quietly strengthened Canadian industries. Each calculated step was setting the stage for outcomes that would shock anyone watching only the headlines. Leadership sometimes works in silence, but its effects can be monumental.
That there is a thing called the private sector. The private sector makes decisions about investment. The private sector makes decisions.
The private sector moves where opportunity exists, and Carney understood this perfectly. He wasn't conceding. He was securing leverage. Markets, not media, dictate the real direction of a nation's future. While chaos dominated Parliament and headlines, Carney quietly built Canada's strength, step by step, decision by decision. The story you've been told about betrayal scratches only the surface. The real power, the real moves are about to unfold. The next moves will show who truly holds the leverage. Only those paying close attention will witness how this carefully orchestrated strategy reshapes Canada's future. Stay alert, because what comes next will blow the headlines out of the water. They thought the story ended with that meeting, with the headlines screaming betrayal and weakness. But the real narrative was only beginning. Behind closed doors, agreements were being crafted. Negotiations quietly advancing, and strategies unfolding that no camera, no tweet, no headline could capture. Every policy, every funding measure, every handshake was a deliberate move on a chessboard that stretched far beyond Parliament. Canada was not just reacting. It was shaping its future, one calculated decision at a time. The opposition cried disaster, but Carney's strategy turned pressure into leverage, chaos into opportunity. Worker retraining programs, liquidity support, and strategic investments weren't just emergency measures. They were instruments of resilience, designed to protect industries while the world assumed Canada was faltering. And just when it seemed that the drama of headlines was the only story, the true power play began to show. Markets responded quietly, investments stabilized, and the sectors critics claimed were collapsing were gaining strength. The calm, measured approach, invisible to the casual observer, was redefining what leadership looks like when a country faces both domestic fury and international pressure. But the most dramatic part? The opposition had no idea this was happening. Every accusation of weakness, every viral number thrown around, every shout in Parliament was exactly the cover under which the real work was being done. How do you lead a nation while the world believes you're losing? Carney showed exactly how, with patience, foresight, and precision. And as the next moves unfolded, it became clear. Headlines do not shape destiny. Strategy does. The unseen victories, the subtle maneuvers, and the calculated leverage were building Canada's power quietly, steadily, and irreversibly. Those paying attention would witness a nation quietly asserting itself, while the loudest voices were still chasing the narrative they wanted to see. The stakes were higher than anyone realized. Every agreement, every negotiation, every subtle signal was converging toward a single goal: securing Canada's position in a world dominated by a superpower. While the opposition continued to shout, the real power was quietly asserting itself, and the results were already beginning to show. The auto sector stabilized, investments flowed, and industries once at risk found new momentum. The headlines screamed disaster, but the markets knew the truth. Canada was quietly regaining control of its economic destiny. Leadership is not measured by who shouts the loudest. It's measured by who shapes the future while others are distracted. Carney's calm, calculated approach had done just that. Every funding program, every strategic partnership, and every policy move had been a step toward a stronger, more resilient Canada. What looked like concession to some was, in reality, leverage being carefully built, layer by layer. And the most critical part? The story isn't over. Every move now sets the stage for the next chapter in Canada's economic and political narrative. For those paying attention, it is clear. Strength isn't always visible, but it is unmistakable when the results begin to unfold. So stay alert, stay informed, and follow the moves that really matter. Don't be fooled by the headlines, the viral claims, or the outrage. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join a community of Canadians who understand the true story. The story of strategy, resilience, and leadership that is quietly reshaping the nation's future. Because in the end, history doesn't remember who shouted the loudest. It remembers who built the future.